So I'm head of computing at a school in West London, Queensmead School, Google certified trainer, and we've been using Google Apps for Education within the school for around a year. We have a mixture of different devices within the school, so we've got a couple of class sets of iPads, we've got some Chromebooks, and we also offer bring your own device. And we found the fact that Google Apps for Education is multi-platform has suited our users' needs. The reason why I've chosen Google Forms today is because it's something I dismissed when we first got Google Apps. I couldn't see any reason why our learners would have engaged with the forms. As far as I was concerned, it was just a form, a survey, no real use for learning in the classroom. And I couldn't have got it any more wrong, basically. The Google Forms now is a key to all of my classes, and basically it's spreading throughout the school, not just for AFL, but basically general teaching use as well. Okay. What are Google Forms? It's pretty much what it says it is. It's a survey. It allows us to collect data or answers to questions using an easy-to-use web form. There's a multitude of different questions we can ask. It could be text-based, it could be multiple choice, it could be ranking things out of 10. It could be a long essay answer. We could also use grids. It enables you to embed videos, you can embed pictures, and we found it particularly useful for embedding videos. And with using that, how we get the answers, each student in a class, in a year group, whoever you choose to have it with, once they fill out the form, you get something like this. It's an easy laid out spreadsheet with each student's individual answers. So the question they've been asked is at the top, and each student answers appears in a row below. So it could have been you've done a quiz with a multitude of different classes, and you have a snapshot of what their answers were. You can also go into a little bit further analysis, and you can have a bit of an overview of the types of answers that people have given. And in fact, if it's multiple choice, it lays it out nicely in a graph and it gives you percentages. So a little bit like the voting pads, where you would have a graph on the screen, you can do the same with Google Forms. So if you ask them a question, true or false, 1 out of 10, on a scale or whatever it may be, you've got an instant response, and this can be updated on the board, so you can see how many students have replied and exactly what answers you are getting back. Okay, top 5 uses. I've tried to summarise it. Some of them may not be applicable for primary school or all different subjects, but I've tried to include things that are a little bit generic and you can apply to every class. First one, homework and flipped learning. So flipped learning is quite a big thing at the moment. For those of you that aren't sure what it is, it's kind of, instead of the student doing the learning within the classroom, they actually do the learning at home for their homework. And when they come into the classroom the next day, they do the homework where the teacher is there to kind of help them through and provide them with advice. We found Google Forms especially good basically to implement flipped learning. We can embed a video into Google Forms. It could be a YouTube video, it could be a lesson that you've recorded before, and to monitor, to make sure the students are actually doing the learning, you can ask them a few questions. It could be what happened in the 60-second pointer within the video, or tell me one thing you have learned from the video. That way you have monitored that they've actually done the learning before they come into the classroom to do the homework the next day. And with that, it's easy to monitor. You can check straight away within 5 seconds that everybody in your class may have actually done the homework. There is no collecting in sheets, there's no monitoring the homework. You can see everybody's done the homework, everybody's answered some questions, and it's a matter of 5 seconds. And anything that makes marking homework quickly, I see as a real benefit. Okay, step 2. All well that we can collect this information, we can do plenary starters, we can do starters, we can do plenary, we can ask students questions to check their learning. We're also in the process of kind of creating Google Forms for all of our GCSE and A-level exams. What that means is we can quickly, easily assess students and mark their projects. And there's a little kind of script, I don't want to say script, it sounds technical, more of a little add-on that you can add on to Google Forms, which allows you to grade all the quizzes, all the exams instantly within the space of 10 seconds. Takes a little bit of setting up. It's not complicated to do, but once you have it forever, and you can run it again and again depending on your classes. I'm going to show you a very short video. It's around 2 minutes, and it just tells you what this script can do. It's called Flubaroo. Not quite sure why it's called Flubaroo, but it is a very powerful tool.
Thanks for checking out this short demo of Flubaroo. For this demo, I created a fake assignment using Google Forms and submitted answers myself. All of the submissions were automatically inserted into the associated spreadsheet, shown here. Now that I have all the submissions, I'd like to grade them, which is where Flubaroo comes in. Flubaroo is a script that you can install from the Google Script Gallery. To save time in this demo, I've already pre-installed it. Once installed, you'll see a new menu called Flubaroo at the top with the other menus. Let's select Grade Assignment and see what happens. In step 1, Flubaroo asks me to select a grading option for each question asked, such as if it's worth points, if it should be skipped, or if it identifies a student. Flubaroo will do its best to identify the correct option for you. Once I've correctly selected all grading options, I click Continue. In step 2, Flubaroo asked me to identify which submission should be used as the answer key. Looking through them, I recognize the first one as the submission I made earlier, which I want to use as the answer key. Once selected, I can continue on with the grading. The grading should finish in under a minute. Great, it's done. Now I can click on View Grades to see the results. Note that to record the grades, Flubaroo has created a new, adjacent worksheet called Grades. You can see it down here in the lower left. At the top of this worksheet is a summary of the grading, including the average score. Beneath this are the grades for each submission, including total score expressed in both points and percent, the number of times this particular student made a submission, and of course, the score for each individual question, which in this case is either 1 point or 0 points. Also, for each question, the very last row shows the percent of students who got that question correct. Questions on which less than 60% of students got the right answer are highlighted in orange to alert the teacher. In addition to grading, Flubaroo has other features as well. Flubaroo can also generate a report showing the distribution of grades. You can also email this report to yourself so that you can print it out or share it with others. Plus, Flubaroo can also email each student their own grade, along with an optional message and the answer key if desired. Each student will receive a personalized email with their grades. Thanks for watching. I hope Flubaroo can help you and your class. For more information, please visit flubaroo.com or email feedback@flubaroo.com.
Okay, what Flubaroo allows you to do is instantaneously mark quizzes, exams, and change your teaching based on that. So if you were to do a quick quiz in the middle of a lesson or at the end of the lesson, you can identify which areas or which topic that students have struggled on and then adapt your teaching either within the lesson or into the next lesson. Third use that we have found, third tip, is PLCs, Personal Learning Checklists. This is where students create a checklist based on the specification or based on the different levels which they could use, and they can kind of use the traffic light system to say how they feel they are doing on a topic. So it could be that they check and say that they are green, they are amber, they are red. They can revisit this again and again. So it could be at the beginning of every lesson or at the end of every lesson, they update their personal learning checklist. If they feel that they have made progression in a certain area, they can go back and change it to amber and red. Oh, sorry, not amber and green. And this is how it looks for the teacher. So I can take a snapshot how my students feel they are progressing in each area. So if it's all green, I can think, well, good, we've covered that area, we can move on, I've done a good job. But it allows me as a teacher to find out a little bit of feedback of how I think how the learners think they are progressing. So if there are areas with rows of red, I can see quite quickly and clearly that that's something I need to go back and cover. And it also allows you, if we see here, this particular student, first of all, thought they were amber on that topic, went back, revisited, and decided that actually, now I've made progression, and I'm now green. And this is an excellent way with Ofsted kind of thinking, always, how can we check progress? How can we tell that they've made improvements? If students are, again, using a Google form, it could be 30 seconds, could be a minute to update their progress. We've got a record of how they've progressed. Okay, step 4. Google Forms is not just a teacher tool. Students have access to forms, and they can create forms themselves. So if we provide students with the specifications, if we provide students with the different level descriptors, they can make their own forms for peer assessment. It could be that they go through the specification, which we encourage our students to do. helps them get a deeper understanding of what's expected, and ask feedback from their peers of how well they think they have progressed in that particular topic. So it could be that, well, actually, when they've put a form together, they've asked their peers to do a bit of peer assessment, they found out, well, I've not quite done enough in this area, and that allows them to change their work and make improvements. Okay, 5. This is my personal favourite. It's probably the quickest to do, and it involves perhaps 2 or 3 questions. It matches in with the objectives of the lessons. So in this particular one, it was a computer science lesson, and we were learning variables in Python. At the beginning of the lesson, I can ask them, how do you think you understand at the moment variables? Are you able to create variables in Python? 10 seconds, they can give me a bit of information. Usually at the beginning of the lesson, it's going to be 2 or 3. Halfway through the lesson, done some teaching, they've done some practice, I can stop them again and say, 30 seconds, update, how do you think you are doing now? And hopefully the plan is that they can say, well, now I'm no longer a 2, I've moved up to a 4 or a 5 or a 6. And then again at the end of the lesson for the plenary, they are giving me feedback of how they've progressed. This is something that we are trying to introduce as a way of showing Ofsted basically that progress has been made within a lesson. So the student is actually saying, well, at the start of the lesson, I was only a 1, and now at the end of the lesson, I feel I'm an 8 or a 9. And also, we try to include a little bit of feedback to the teacher. Students aren't always willing to ask for help. They're not always willing to say, I don't quite get this, sir. But being able to communicate with your teacher with a little bit of feedback and say, not quite sure about this, sir, not quite sure about that, it allows us as teachers to identify the areas that we need to work on again. Okay. The same goes basically with this. I can adapt my teaching. If I think by the middle of the lesson everybody should understand Objective 1 and it should be achieved, and I do this little bit of progress check in the middle, and I find out, well, actually, only 50% of my students know what to do, I can adapt my lesson. I can say, they've not made the progress that I wanted to, and I can do some extra teaching. I can change what I had planned to adapt to how they've learned in that lesson. Okay. Google Forms, although we've talked a lot about assessment for learning, it's not just a teaching tool. There's a wide variety of different uses that we have found we can use it in school. And initially, we had no ideas of what to do with forms. And now, everything that possibly can be is pretty much converted into a form. And it's purely because it's so easy to collect data and analyse that data after. So, teachers' performance management, Google Form. Student-parent surveys, Google Form. ICT help desks, we use in a Google Form. Behaviour management, heads of year especially have found this really useful. Any behaviour incidents around a school, if somebody fills out a Google Form, they can track using the spreadsheet, they get it in a nice columns, which student has misbehaved, when was it they misbehaved, what was it they did, and they can track how many behaviour issues that particular student has had. It's replacing basically sending emails, filling in Word documents, having information all over the place. It allows it to be put together in one easy-to-manage location. We have found, of all the kind of Google apps, this has been the most powerful for the school. For assessment, all students can easily access it, and also for wider use around the school. I hope I've provided you with some useful tips. I do recommend it is something that you go away and give a try. The potential for Google Forms is endless within the classroom and across the school. I should be around for the next half an hour or so if anybody has any tips or any questions. But thank you very much, and I hope I've been of some help. Thank you.